If you're a self-taught developer just like me, chances are your first attempt at C# and Revit API was carried out in one of Jeremy Tammik's Visual Studio templates. And while all of us are worshipping at the altar of the one and only building coder, all of these templates that he conveniently put out for us are, well, just restricted to a single version. So what happens if you have to develop your Revit plugin for multiple Revit versions? Do you copy and paste your code around so you can debug it for each? Or what happens when a certain class is not supported by a certain Revit API version? I'm always on the lookout to push my limits and learn a little bit more about coding, and I hope so are you. At the end of this video, you will know how to set up your project environment so you can debug your Revit plugin for multiple versions. Welcome back. This is me, Christina, and my superpower is helping creative people get the best of any BIM software faster. If you've been around this channel for a while, you probably already know that I post a lot about C# and Revit API. And today in particular, we're going to focus on our project environment and in particular on the project file. We're going to learn everything about its XML schema and how we can use that knowledge to modify it so we set up our project for a different Revit API version or for multiple ones. By the end of this video, you'll be able to safely navigate the project file and modify it so that you get the best results for your case. And
All right. So I've created a project from Jeremy Tammik's 2020 Revit add-in template. And the first step to creating our multiple Revit version project is to update it from a legacy styled one to an SDK styled one. And to do so, we just have to go and unload it, hit edit project file, and the first thing we need to do is make our project file a little bit more readable for us so we can easily detect what information we can use further and what information we need to completely remove. Item group, enter. Okay, this build post build event here, I think I would like to make it go. Yes, now it looks better. Okay, after clean, nice. All right, so the first thing is to change our project here to SDK. Microsoft.NET SDK and remove everything that is relevant actually to the legacy style project. For example, all of these import we have to remove. And I think here at the end we had also something that we also needed to change and completely remove. All right. So now it looks good. And I guess for now, the only thing I would like to further add is probably my .NET framework. And for that reason, I would like to add a new property group Mm, and add target framework to be NET 447. Mm, and before we save our project file and load it back, I think I would like to highlight a few stuff. For example, this is information that's mostly relevant to our assembly for now. In the future, I would like to put all the information relevant to the Revit version over here in this property group. And the framework. Over here right now, this property group gives us instructions about our debug. This one is relevant to our release. And for now, since we are going to still stick to Revit API 2020, this will be our Revit API version. Item group. And maybe for now, I would like to leave out my post-build event out of the game, so to speak. And not the project. It's not going to work like that. All right, and let's reload our project with dependencies. Save it. And now that we've updated to an SDK-styled project, we can just double click and further edit. But before that, let's build and let's see what happens. Probably we will no longer need the assembly info. But let's see. Oh, yes. Maybe just remove the whole folder for now. And if we build again, probably this will not need to be compiled anymore. So let's remove the item group for the app and command CS and build again. For now, everything works and we've fully managed to update our legacy file to an SDK one. Time to think of how we can create a conditional relationship somehow between our Revit version and our configuration. And over here, where my Revit version information will be, for now, I will add something like a variable called Revit version. And for now, since we are still working with 2020, I will just type 2020. And I will come over here and maybe make a couple of rearrangements. Well, this target framework profile will not be necessary anymore. And I don't want just configuration conditions anymore. So I will go ahead and delete them. And the output type library, I would like to grab and place over here at the very beginning. And of course, this target framework version and the file alignment do not make sense for us anymore. So let's go ahead and save this. And now that I have my Revit version, it's time to look at my debug and my release. But before that, I will go to Configuration Manager and we'll create a new debug specifically for 2020 and a new release that will be called 2020. And I will close. Yes, I will have them both. And maybe these guys are not necessary over here for now. So when it comes to our debug, we have a condition that doesn't really make sense for us anymore. Our new condition and our new constants have to do something a little bit more with our specific version. So here, when it comes to configuration, I only want to check if its name contains debug for the debug 2020. And over here, when it comes to constants, I will add Revit and our Revit version. All right. And when it comes to my release, I would like to set just the opposite condition. I don't want it to have any mention of debug. And ideally, I have to also, actually, I just have to add this as well. Revit version 2020, right now in our case. And actually, what I see here is that no matter if it's a debug or release, we always want this action to happen. The relevant output desk Revit version to be opened or started. So maybe it's better to pull it out in a separate group here, open Revit, property group, and over this, I'll just go ahead and grab and it should work just fine. Let's save here. And maybe when it comes to my output path, a Revit version folder here could be rather useful. So let's save again. And let's build it for debug 2020 first to see if there is any problems. Not really. Everything seems to work just fine. And 2020. All right. So I guess something that we need to take care of here in the Open Revit property group is to go here for our Revit version. As you remember, we try to make the whole file dependent on this variable. so that we can switch between Revit versions further on. All right. And finally, it's time to take care of the post-build event over here. So I guess our first thing will be to just replace 2020 with our Revit version. Okay, let's dock it over here. And everywhere you see Revit version, let's see what will happen when I build the file. Oops, I have an error somewhere in my post build event. Mm, I have project directory here, but maybe in my case, solution directory will work better. And let's see for the debug first. So we solved the issue when it comes to our post build event. We just had to switch from project directory to solution one in my case. Um, and now everything seems to work, and our file is completely dependent on the Revit version variable right now. Mm, so what we have left to change is actually how we reference our Revit API. If you've already worked with some uh, projects that are related to Autodesk platform services, you probably know that usually we don't reference the API in this way. Instead, we reference it through a package. So we can go here and browse for Revit API, all main versions. And in our case, we still want to settle for 2020. And let's hit install. Mm, So for now, we want to remove these Revit API references and keep the system one. And let's build our project and see if everything works. For now, everything works, but what will happen if we need a different version? When it comes to our package reference, we have to figure out a way how to use our Revit version variable. Mm, mm, and let's see how this will work out. It seems to be all right. Okay, now we have a way to reference different versions of the Revit API through one package. All right, so now that we have resolved that, let's go to our Revit version and framework, and let's think of how we can make it switch between different versions based on a condition. And let's see what happens. All right. And let's make it a condition to have our configuration contain 2020. And oops, completely wrong. Now we have some issues. All right. Mm, And in my case, I would like to develop my app for everything above version 2019. Mm, okay, we have 2021 here. 2020. Go. And 2023. And on top of that, we have to go here and add the relevant configurations. When? Mm, 23. And mm, actually, I will need to add a couple of stuff here. Mm, okay. And I think now we are very much good to test out our app for different versions. So now that we are done with our project file and everything seems to work, let's try out our application. Here I've created a little test tab and a panel. And over here, I've created a small method that returns the Revit version. And you can see it in action over here when we start switching between our configurations. Everything seems to be working. And what I want to do with my tab and my new button is to get a message on what Revit version I'm currently using. So let's go for 2020. Since this is the only version I have installed right now. All right, so it looks like our test pops up. And when we hit, we get a simple message that says you're working with Revit 2020. And this should be pretty much everything for today. I will upload this to my repository, obviously, and let me know if everything works well with your version.
Thanks for making it to the end of this video. Actually, today's tutorial is a little bit more special for me, as it marks the beginning of my journey to creating my dream tool called Template Generator. If you are like me, you've probably spent a lot of hours just working on your Revit template so that it has the right graphical representations and information. So if you're curious what features I plan to include so that I automate this process, make sure to head over to my website called dynamiterabbit.com. And if you want to be one of the first ones to give it a try, make sure to join my waiting list so I can notify you about any updates. Thanks again, and in general, if you just enjoy watching my videos and want me to make more tutorials like that, please like and subscribe.